rumors and reports have been popping up on Twitter throughout Thursday, so let's get right to it and bring in SNY's MLB insider, Andy Martino. And Andy, it's been a busy night for you, so let's use the old football field analogy. What yard line are we on with this Mets-Mariners trade?
We're on the 3-yard line. We're close. There was just a substitution made, however, literally just in the last couple of minutes as I was getting ready to go on with you, Eamon. The deal changed. That's why before these things are done, they're not done. So here's what it is right now. This is the current deal that's on the table. The Mets get Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz. The Mariners get, and I assume, by the way, that the Mets get cash. We don't know exactly how much money is being exchanged in the deal right now, and that's a big piece. Anyway, the Mariners get Jay Bruce, Anthony Swarzak, top draft pick Jared Kelky, Justin Dunn, and the righty Gerson Batista. Jeff McNeil was in this trade. I was just told. And then the Mets got a little bit shaky about that because they like Jeff McNeil and subbed in Batista. Now, again, not done. So could there be another substitution? Sure. And that's why we're not talking about a trade that's finalized or official or announced. Won't be announced till tomorrow. But that McNeil for Batista bit just happened, or I just heard of it a couple of minutes ago.
So that part changes things a little bit. Certainly the Met fan likes McNeil, but still, as you take a look at what you just threw out there as a possible proposal done deal, the Mets are giving up a bunch in this, and Dunn and Kelky going to the Mariners. So why does it appear that Seattle has the leverage over the Mets in this trade?
Well, that's a good question. I think that at the beginning of this process, earlier in the week, when the Mets were really starting to go hard after Cano, they were hoping probably to get Diaz as just a way to, hey, we'll take Cano off your hands, give us Diaz. And it turned out that Diaz, who is such an elite closer, by the way, such a good relief pitcher, probably the best closer in the game last year. And the Mariners were like, if we're going to trade this guy, we're going to need some prospects. So I think what you had once that became evident was an aggressive GM in Brodie Van Wagenen, who did not draft Jared Kelky or Justin Dunn. Maybe his mindset and the people that he's brought in very recently don't maybe project Kelky in the same way as the Sandy Alderson regime projects Kelky. We'll have to wait a few years to find out who's right about that, and it looks like we'll find out in Seattle, not in New York. But that's the mindset of this regime, and it's very, very different from what you're used to, I think, in the Alderson regime, which was methodical, conservative, somewhat risk-averse, whereas Brodie Van Wagenen saying, however this looks right now, I'm not afraid to go ahead and do something bold. I think he's going to get a lot of pushback on giving up Kelky if this gets done. I don't think the rest of it's going to be that hard to give up, of course. But he's following through on his opening press conference promise to be better next year, certainly. And that's what he's targeting. So, yeah, it looks like a good deal for the Mariners, but I guess it depends what your goal is, and Brodie wants to win.
All right, you gave me 2 leaping points for my next question. I'll get to Kelky. Let's go back to Diaz. As you mentioned, an elite closer coming off a 57-save season for Seattle. So how important is first step is this for Brodie Van Wagenen and the Mets to rebuild that bullpen?
Well, they couldn't acquire a better relief pitcher. Literally, this is a guy that it's the best first step you could have. Now, you could make the argument that you don't have to give up prospects for a good reliever when you could go ahead and sign Craig Kimbrell or something along those lines. But just in terms of your question, Eamon, in terms of how this is to build a bullpen, it's a tremendous move. You couldn't, again, import a better relief pitcher. And I assume that they're going to have to sign one more. They've been talking about Andrew Miller and some others.
All right, Andy, now the fun stuff. You've covered the Mets and baseball in this town for a long time, and you know how fans and even reporters love to fall in love with prospects. So what is it about Jared Kelky now that has so many hoping he's not part of the deal, even though it looks like he's on his way to the Seattle organization?
Yeah, he's part of the deal at the moment, and the reason why that hurts not just fans, but I'd say even probably some Mets people that have been around long enough to have drafted and begun to develop him is that this is a guy who everyone says is a stud player. I had not heard a counter to that. So the way to like this trade, if you're a Met fan, isn't to think anything bad about Kelky, because that's a tough loss. I guess it's to think you're going to be better this coming year and probably the year after. And they've got now 4 or 5 years as Kelky's developing to find another outfielder. Look, he's not Mike Trout, but he's a guy who could become one of the top prospects in the game over the next couple years. And again, it's Brodie Van Wagenen saying, I don't care. I want to win now, and this wasn't my draft pick, and let's go. You will judge that we'll judge that based on how the next really couple of years play out, Eamon.
The Mets certainly hope he does not become Mike Trout. But Andy Martino, great reporting as always, and thanks for hopping on board here on Geico Sports Night with the latest on the Mariners and Mets proposed trade. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Eamon.